Embrace the magical side of life, where anything is possible and the infinite is accessible to all. Let's have a conscious conversation about what's going on in the world, in your life, and your relationship from the expanded perspective of your soul. The path to awareness begins and ends in the heart. So let's take it there, one step at a time, and learn to cultivate magic in your life every single day. In each episode, we share a collective space in which we discover the unique facets of our own magic and embody our superhuman qualities by humbly exploring how it's super simply to be human. Hosts Kai and Del co-create a magical experience to remind you that you are magical as fuck. Now, be unleashed. This is our daily magic.
I did wear these things in the sauna a lot, so
there you go.
hello everyone. First off, yay, it worked.
Try number 2. We made it.
Yes, we did it. Thank you, technology, for cooperating this time with us.
Isn't it cool, right?
So welcome everyone to another episode of our Daily Magic Podcast. As the intro said, you all are magical as F, and we're about to have a pretty magical conversation with another magical being who's going to showcase her magic, not only for my wife and I to see, but for all of you to see. And our intention with every conversation is you can be able to take something from this conversation to help you to incorporate more of your own unique magic into the world, and also see the possibility of what happens when someone makes a decision to unleash their own unique magic to the world. So bring the questions, bring the comments, bring the, emojis? That's what it's called, right? Yeah, emojis, all those different things. This is going to be a very engaging conversation. So I am one half of the host, Del, and
I am Kai, and I have the honor and pleasure of introducing Juliette. Juliette is a certified mind and body coach and expert on relationships, sensuality, healing, trauma, and body shame. She specializes in the reinvention of the most intimate relationship in life, the one you have with yourself. With courses, coaching, VIP experiences, and retreats, Juliette has guided and mentored thousands of women over the past decade and a half rewrite the relationship with self, confidence, their bodies, mind, and spirit using her unique rapid release, rewire, and restore method. That's a lot of R's. I love it.
I called it R4 to be short.
R4, got it.
I love that.
Got it. Her mission is to create a world where every woman remembers the truth of who they are and where scrumptiousness, pleasure, ease, spirituality, and sensuality are prioritized. She is a mother to 4 children, hence the R is R4, right? In their early 20s, who she loves fiercely. Welcome, Juliette. And can you tell us how to pronounce your last name?
Caraman.
Caraman.
Yeah,
awesome.
Just Caraman. Like caravan.
Nice, Caraman.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And it's great that it worked this time, right?
Yeah.
Welcome.
And we're here at a special time, which I love as well.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So how did you discover your own magic, Juliet? Did it just creep up on you, or was it something that you went to work at to find?
It's so funny, right? I mean, I heard a lot of magics when you were presenting this. I was like, "Yo, magic here, magic there." I like spelling it with CK, but that's it. Just because I like a little bit of magic, and it's funny. It's what I call scrumptiousness. I use the word scrumptious a lot, and it's kind of the life chi. It's the chi. It's a life force. It's yeah, the effervescence that runs through us, and that we're all born with, but that we kind of have dimmed down, kind of like boxed in and like threw away the key. So um, I was talking to someone earlier today on another podcast. When was it that I actually realized that I wanted to do something with my life? And I was like, there have been so many moments that I've actually been on this path of ascension. And it's like, and if I look back now, I didn't know that. I think it started when I was 1.5. I had a near death experience. And of course, I didn't remember this until about, I'm trying to think, when did my sister die? 6 years ago. Because it's always been like the little breadcrumbs, right? I've always just kind of like picked up the breadcrumbs and followed the path. And I had gone to a sacred medicine journey, Bufo, and did had this, like experience becoming one with God again, and like the universe and air and everything, massive ego death. And it was like I had to go through like a dark tunnel, and went up into the light. And it's like everything came back to me. I'm like, oh my God, I know this place. And I just saw myself as a toddler being picked up out of the pond. So I told my sister this. I'm like, hey, did I die nearly when I was like about 18 months? She's like, yeah, I picked you up out of the moat. So I explained what had happened. I said, hey, I've had this near death experience, or I've just done this sacred medicine. And it was like I became one again with everything. And I just went through this dark tunnel, and I went up to the light. Now she was dying with cancer. So, and I helped her pass over. So the morning of her death, she's like, hey, Jules, can I go to the light? I was like, yes. So for me, every step along the way, there have been little breadcrumbs like that. And I've actually trusted myself to feel them and to search for them and to take action. It's like, okay, I'm falling off a cliff here. No idea what's happening, but it's obviously the right thing to do. So there have been a few instances like that. I think one of the major ones is probably when my eldest son, I have 4 kids and I live in the UK. My eldest son had wanted to go to a certain school. School system is really, really, really very competitive in London. So he didn't get into school when he was 8 or so. I said, oh, mommy, can I just try to go for a boarding school? And I'm like, I'd rather not have you in a boarding school, but fine, go. And, he explained it so beautifully. And then he told his dad. And his dad just like, no, that's not what I wanted for you. And I could just see this little boy like starting to hunch over. And I was like, no, you don't get to do this. I mean, absolutely love my ex-husband, but that was the moment that he and I actually split up because we had a massive row. He said, hey, maybe we should get divorced. My body responded. It felt like I could viscerally feel like 20 kilos come off me. And it was like, whoa, okay. So the next morning I was like, yeah, I think we're better apart. And I'm now in his house in Lebanon, Beirut. So we get along 10 years later. We're like actually really best friends, but we're just better apart. And then fast forward, I was in another relationship and overgiving. And what happened is that my body just kind of like smacked me on the head and said, hey, listen. If you're not going to listen, we're going to make you listen. So I spent 9 months in hospital because I was fainting and no one could find out what it was. And then when that relationship ended, the healing was really quick and rapid. And that's when my real earnest journey started. So that's nutshell, the last 15 years in a quite quick nutshell.
Wow, what a journey. What a journey. And on the brink of the cosmos at that.
Right. And now it's kind of like, and now I kind of help others that have had a lot of sexual trauma. I remembered, massive sexual trauma. So I studied that a lot. I somehow attract people that have had a lot of suicide in their family. I've helped doula my father over. My mother committed euthanasia. So that was all in 3 years' time between my sister, my mother, my father. So it was all, grief was really my biggest teacher. And at the same time, I was learning a lot of new skills and actually coaching a lot of other people to become better at this and actually better at understanding and learning what the connection to self is and how they can get that across.
Wow. For yourself and reintegrating it into your life after having these grief-filled experiences, what are some of the biggest takeaways that you've learned, to help someone kind of like be themselves again?
I think for me, feeling fully, my brand's called Feel Fully You, but actually have access to all those feelings, because so often we're stuck in our story, or we're stuck, we're kind of like wedded to like what happened to us instead of realizing life happened for us. And if I talk to most of my clients and a lot of other coaches and therapists that I've helped, they're like, I wouldn't change my life ever. Yeah, it got us to where we are actually shining our light, where we're helping others. So first of all is to actually feel it, to let your emotions do the speaking, because the only way out is through. You have to feel it to heal it, right? And it doesn't last very long, to really allow yourself to feel an emotion. Usually it takes less than 2 minutes. And then what happens is, so every experience is broken up into 4 elements. This is how I say this is my R4 method in a nutshell as well. So it's an image, a thought, a body sensation, and an emotion. So if you allow yourself to duplicate all 4 of those elements, you move through, and then another layer comes up, and then you move through again until all of a sudden you get to that place of nowhere and no place and nothing. And without realizing it, you're there within like 10, 15 minutes. And the whole story that you've told yourself about, how terrible life is, it's like, there's no charge. It's not really important anymore.
I love how you created distinction between the body sensation and the emotion. A lot of times people have those two intertwined together, and you're just like, hey, there's 2 separate things.
Completely. Yeah, I've done a lot of somatic experiencing. I led a conscious sexuality movement in London. I was a dominatrix. So I've kind of like played with these altered states, right? And really realizing, how can you embody it? How can you actually feel all of it? Because you have your emotions and you have your body sensations. Because most people are like, yeah, no, feel it. I'm feeling happy. I'm like, well, what does feeling happy feel like for you? Give me a body frame, give me a sensation that's going through your body. And we don't often have language for that. We're not really taught to share, like, oh, I have a bit of a constriction in my heart area and it feels a bit tight and prickly. Because if I explain it to you like that, you're like, oh yeah, I know what that would feel like in my body. But if you're saying I'm feeling sad, it's like, what does sad feel like for you? What is happening in your body?
That's what I like. Because by you going from how someone feels to where do they feel it at, how does it feel to them, it's their own unique journey with that, what's going on inside of them. And it's so easy what happens, and you see it happening with Western medicine, is somebody say like, okay, I'm feeling this or feeling that, and they label it, this is what it is, this is what you need to take, this is what's going on. And it's like a band-aid to not get to the root, but it's like a surface level thing. Here, take this to cope with it.
Completely. And that's it, right? But that is probably one of the first things that I teach my students, my clients, is like, let's actually have some feeling words. What's the temperature? The location, maybe give it a color. Is it moving? Is it not moving? Is it static? There's what's the quality like? And they're looking at me like, you can talk about one tiny part of your body like that? I'm like, yeah. So I create like all these lists of what different words we can use for it. For a while, it takes a bit of getting used to, but once you've got that, it's like, whoa, okay, so there's a moment that I felt this and that. And then when you're in connection with others, often then you realize like, oh, I felt that at the same time. That's where we realize that we're all interconnected, right? We're all just energy emotion.
Yeah. Wow. So do you go into this connection with the clients that you work with? Is that part of your modality? And if it isn't, love to hear about what an experience with you is like.
I'm an experience of me can be can be quite big range of things. So I used to take people through, and I still do with some VIP clients, take them through a physical hands-on experience. I'm also an erotic blueprint coach, so I know, what your way into pleasure is as well, which everyone has a different way into pleasure. And also then I read energy. So very often I'll be off the body, just showing them what kind of touch, what that energy might enable them to do, or what happens in their body, because our mind will say like, oh yeah, I like that kind of touch, but the body doesn't lie, right? You might be off the body and your body starts convulsing like this. It's like, oh, okay, so you're quite energetic. With others, I get floggers out and take them to massively ecstatic states. These are like when I'm actually in person, and I don't do that many of them anymore, but I'm starting to do more retreats again. But otherwise, it's on a Zoom call, and I just take them through different states, like questions like, feel that. So what's the emotion that's coming up? What's the thought? What's the body sensation? And is there an image? And let them feel that. And then it's like, okay, what's arising now? And then there's always a next layer until you get to that state of no mind, and that there is nothing there. And then you have people expand in that place, because that's the meditative state that we want to get to, right? Don't have to get to anything, but that's the easiest part for me, it's the easiest way to get there. And then kind of like realize, okay, we can radiate this out and bring it back into our life.
Amazing. And you're talking about that place of no mind. Dell and I just did Bufo together a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
It was Valentine's Day.
Oh yeah, that's right. Valentine's Day.
So,
No time, no place, no space. Doesn't really matter time anymore, right?
Yeah.
And how was it for you?
It was funny. She was like, she told me a couple weeks in advance, which I actually let her. I'm actually grateful for her. She did that as opposed to leaving a surprise for the day of. So she was like, "Oh yeah, happy Valentine's Day. By the way, we're gonna do Booth in a couple weeks." I'm like,
Okay.
What? But yeah, it was life altering because of the fact, and the way I explained it, I was like, I didn't exist for like 40 something minutes. Like me, who I am, this person wasn't. And it was a quick release in it, because I do a meditation practice, so I surrender. I worked on surrendering, but then also I heard other people's experiences of what happened and what they were fighting against with their ego. They were so holding on to their ego, but then this thing's like, no, you're gonna have to let go of this, or it's gonna be very rocky for you until you surrender for it. So like for me, I just surrendered, and then right when I surrendered, I just like. I took it. I actually went first too. I volunteered to go first. And when I did it, I just took it, surrendered, went into this white light, and it was just gone. for a while.
It's
Especially like
incredible, right?
coming back into the space. And I was looking at her. I'm like, I saw her started. She started doing her prayer, and getting ready to do hers. And I was like, how long was that until you did that? I was thinking like it was like hours. Yeah, it's only 10 minutes. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's really quick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely hardcore. I wouldn't say people start with this immediately, or make sure that you have a very good shaman or
Yeah.
practitioner who actually guides you through it, because my first experience, I had someone that actually found it quite scary, and I started channeling her and keeping her there, and that was my first experience of actually opening up again. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So the two shaman there is like, oh, you're channeling, and I'm like, apparently. Like, I knew that I used to be able to do this, but like over time you kind of like shut it down. I remember when I moved to Texas when I was 12 from Holland, and all of a sudden I had this real good connection with my science teacher there. But then over the years you just kind of like, yeah, no, that's crazy. But then now all of a sudden that has opened up massively after Bufo and ayahuasca, and I actually lead mushroom journeys and lead people through that. So yeah. It's once the neural pathways are open, it's much easier to become that oneness again, and to realize that we are not separate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I don't like to force up. I feel like everyone needs to have one experience of that oneness. Like,
Completely.
obviously, at first I thought psychedelics was the only way, but no, there's plenty of different avenues. But once you're able to like experience that oneness again, because you are the oneness. Once you're able to experience that one time, it's life altering.
I must say that for that, psychedelics are easy because it just gives you that
Yeah.
remembrance immediately, and then after that, it's like, oh, we don't actually need it. People can get it in with breath work, with the modality that I use, with normal meditation, with sex, with anything, with altered states, with pain. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can get there, reach the nothingness. I know, I have to laugh at it. So.
Right. Or remove the things that are in the way, like you're saying.
That's a good way of saying it, right? Yeah. Get out of our own way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you cultivate your own presence? Like, do you have routines or rituals or anything that you do to really keep you the best channel for this work?
It's funny, right? I was thinking this morning that for a while I was really strict. I would do my orgasmic meditation in the morning twice, and then I do my 15 minutes fear inventory, the 12-step thing, and then I do meditation afterwards. And it was like I'd really have my hour and a half of practices, and then that kind of moved on after a few years, and then it became meditating, and I do Dr. Joe stuff as well. So from time to time, like twice or three times in the week, I wake up at 5 o'clock and I do my pineal gland meditation. But I've noticed where, for me at the moment, what I do is I'll do my own R4 method. And what I do is I still have a timer on my phone twice a day for 90 seconds. And I do a full body check-in. So I start with what am I feeling? What am I feeling in my body? Turn everything off. It's like, okay, focus on one part. Okay, focus on my heart. What's happening in my heart? It's like, oh, it's warm. What is there a contraction? No, it's actually really expanded. But the edges feel kind of jagged. Great. Is there an image that comes with it? I'm like, yeah, okay, this. And so is there an emotion that follows? And what else is coming up? What's the thought that comes up? And if you do that twice a day for 90 seconds, you just become present. It's mindfulness. It's actually sometimes walking much slower. My hip has been acting up for the last year, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's where we store a lot of emotions. And I'm like, okay, so I need to actually walk much slower than I would like to, because we like to rush. And it's like, okay, let's be mindful. So I'm like mindfully putting my heel down and then walk all the way through. And it's like, wow, God, it's like, yeah, if I don't actually listen to my body, I just get whacked on the head with it. And I've got to slow down.
Yeah.
So that's my practice.
I'm curious because the first thing you said, orgasmic meditation.
Yes. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
I never heard Om.
You've never heard of it? Oh, yeah.
Om.
Yeah. Yeah.
So intentionally using orgasms in a mindful way.
Yes, it's a partnered practice. So you have one person that has a finger and the other person has a clitoris. So for 15 minutes, you stroke the clitoris really, really slowly like that. And the only aim is to connect. So it's not to give an orgasm, it's not to climax, but what they call orgasm is that life chi, the up, the down, the everything. And that's where actually these body sensations, these frames come through. And it's like, oh, I had a moment when you did an upstroke because you stroke up or you stroke down. I had a moment when you did an upstroke where I felt this tickle in my right earlobe. And it's like, oh, cool. So you received that. And then the other person said, oh, I think at that moment I felt an itch on my left nostril or whatever, but very often you'll notice that you actually ride that wave of energy together.
That's pretty cool.
It's really interesting because it's kind of like clit fiddling your way to to nothingness, to actually ascension.
I love that. That should be a webinar or something, a masterclass you can do.
Right? I mean, the practice itself, there have been lots of different people that have done it, that have called it different things over the years, but that is basically it. Because the woman we have, or on our clitoris, we have over 7,000 nerve endings. And to ride that wave of orgasm, that wave of energy is really beautiful. And yeah, that someone can have this experience without having any commerce, without wanting anything from return from the person that has the finger that is actually stroking. Which is interesting because we're in such a time of commerce. You do this for me and I do that for you. And where it's living and dying, giving and receiving, it's two ends of the same coin, right? But so often that we're used to that we can't actually receive anything without having to give back or without having to try and please the other person. And here it's like, no, I'm going to ask for what I want. And I'm going to receive it without giving anything away.
You are hitting somewhere right there. That is deep because, like, I do feel that. Like, I gotta give to her as well. So that's like a revelation right there.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And I think we're so used to that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was my birthday on Sunday, and then on Monday I did a lucky dip, which we call in England lucky dip. So everyone gets a present that was there. So I did this Zoom call, and I had like 44 people show up. So I gave them courses, a VIP day with me, all kinds of stuff, right? Candles, journals, and it was just me giving. And I had to clean up my energy around that because often we give because we want to be loved or we want to be, or people will say thank you to us. So we feel better about ourselves. And it was like, no. I actually want to give out of just because I want to give my energy. I want to leave my light on people and have made their life maybe slightly better. And then the emails that I got afterwards were just like, oh my God, I didn't know that I could actually receive without giving anything back. You've really opened me up to receiving, to abundance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's powerful.
It was beautiful. Yeah, it was really, and plus it was fun for me as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and even because I'm just expanding with this now because I'm sitting with this as a, let's say, like an entrepreneur or a business person who wants to create business. So you may have that, be in that space of, I'm giving this and I want to receive a client. I'm giving this, I want to receive money. It's like that type of conditional energy that happens, and then when the conditions don't go that way that you like, it can make you get upset, feel some type of way. I definitely have moments of that, but it's so amazing of a bigger space, like you're just saying what you did, of just giving, no attachments to it, no agenda, and then look what happened. That's miraculous.
It's been really fun, but yeah, I did have to clean up my energy behind it because we've all had like free giveaways, but you know, you're kind of like, oh, I got someone on my email list or I got someone this or that. And now I'm just like, no, don't really need you on my email list if you want to. Yeah, come on, absolutely. If not, also good.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. It changes the game.
Yeah, completely.
How have you, well, what has been your experience with, teaching your kids these conscious principles? Have they been receptive to it? Or are they like, whatever, mom?
Well, I'll be honest. So I delved deep into orgasmic meditation. She used to walk around with a t-shirt that says the pussy knows. All right. And this is when I've got four kids, and my boys were 13 and 14, and the girls were, I don't know, 11 and 12. They're all very close in age. So I'd walk around in this and they're like, really? Orgasms are good for you. Like all these really like gaudy t-shirts. And they're like, yeah, mommy, don't, not sure. But they've seen over the years where it's not only about sex, it's about really opening yourself up. And they've, I'm also a hypnotherapist. One of my twin daughters came up to me this January and said, hey mommy, I want to go sober. So she hasn't touched marijuana or alcohol or anything for months now, and really found her connection to herself and to her higher power and God, however she wants to call it. I think she calls it God, and other people might not call it God. But I've noticed how things have rubbed off on them. They might not have always liked it in the beginning, but now when I ask them, like at dinner, I'm like, hey, what are you grateful for? And they'll actually reel off 2 or 3 things that they were grateful for. And because that was one of the things that I used to say, okay, so what are the 3 things that went well today? What are 2 or 3 things that you're proud of yourself of? What are the qualities that you love about yourself? And at first it was like, whoa, I can't talk about myself like that, mommy. Come on, that's crazy. That's so vain. I'm like, no, it's not. What are the qualities that you love about yourself? What are the qualities that you love about your brother? What are the qualities that you love about me? So they started actually just opening up a little bit. And it's like, whoa, this is pretty good. So some of them journal, some of them have gotten into human design a bit because I like human design, but others not so much. But then like now I'm talking to my ex-husband, I'm staying with him in Lebanon, and we're talking about manifestation. He's like, okay, so I'm gonna really do this. I'm like, yeah, great. I'll give you some prompts to write on in the morning and what to do and how to really tap into that energy. So it's rubbed off. It's a ripple effect, right? You can't really stop it, even if they hadn't liked it at first.
True.
A bit hardcore, I think, the way that I introduced them to it.
I mean, you being in Lebanon, at staying with your ex-husband, like that sounds like a manifestation on its own. And do you have any like of those magical stories or magical moments when you're like, oh my gosh, I actually called this in?
Yeah, I mean there've been a lot of magical stories, and I think one of them was actually with him as well. We lived in Paris. We got married and we lived in Paris, and then his brother died, and they used to call him the little grasshopper. And the moment that, because they had called us saying he's been in an accident, you need to come to Lebanon. And I was sitting in the bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and a grasshopper hops on the bed. And I was looking at it, and he just burst into tears, and the phone rang. It was like, your brother has just passed away. So all through our lives, we have seen things like that. Then when we were in Lebanon, his mother came to me in a dream, started speaking to me in Arabic. I spoke in her voice. I don't speak Arabic. So it was all these things that came through. Then there have just been so many, like we've been to places and like, oh, this person you trust, this person you don't. And then all of a sudden, like a job opened up. For me, like I was just like, I'm like, all of a sudden I raised my prices. A lady out of nowhere, and I decided I don't want to do sales calls anymore. A lady out of nowhere just said, can you send me your link for 1 year private coaching? And I was like, oh, that's great. So all these things that just open up, like finding the exact right person to work with. I have a business partner. All of a sudden, everything just became so easy. When you follow the steps, the little crumbs, life can be easy. And there are definitely a few hardships still on the way. And then it's to actually trust and to have that magic come back. And I've had stories where clients have actually healed themselves from Lyme disease. Other people have been on the brink of suicide and come back out of that, no more medicine, all that kind of stuff. So you're like, these are kind of miracles, right?
Yeah, they are. And they can happen every day.
It's crazy. Yeah. I remember one day my husband was meant to fly to Saudi from London, and I just got this massive intuitive hit. I'm like, don't go. He's like, what do you mean? I'm there. I'm like, no. He's like, I'm in the taxi. I'm almost there. I'm like, no, you come back now. He's like, yeah, no, you yourself. I'm like, can you come back now? So it transpired that the plane had engine trouble, and one of the engines had failed. So they circled and they came back. So he was on the way back, but afterwards he found out, it's like, oh, you saved me sitting on a tarmac for, I don't know, 8 or 12 hours. I'm like, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've learned to trust it. I'm usually very good with intuitive with people as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And just to circle back to like your practice, right? At what point in people's lives do they, notice, okay, maybe it's time for me to work with a professional like you? What would be going on for them that they would know for sure that it's time to look you up and call your number?
It's interesting, right? I've had first I was only working with women and then with couples. And actually what's happened over the last few years is I'm working with young adults. So usually kids between age 17 and 25. And that is because at that age they're very vulnerable, and a lot of them want to go back home. And they're very sensitive, and they feel energies, and they think that they're going crazy, and that's and everyone just tells them that they're drama queens, and that they often have some kind of kind of like lupus or any kind of these what do you call them, like diseases, but autoimmune issues, because that often flags up, right? There's something going on emotionally as well, and there's something going on in them. So they know that there's something more out there, and they'll feel the energy. It's like when you come into a room, you know that it's safe or not safe. When a dog or a baby comes up to you, they know that you're a safe place, right? They don't reach like, hey, up to someone if they don't trust them. So that is how often it happens. And often I'm in other spaces with people in masterminds, and then they realize what my energy is like, and then they want to work with me. Or they've seen me on a podcast and they're like, oh, can I do some of your courses? Because that's the easier way to work with me, is to do some of my courses, some of my methods.
Beautiful. I'm so curious what also you've learned by traversing the earth the way that you have. You said Texas, Paris, London, Lebanon.
Oh yeah, I've lived everywhere. I moved to Texas when I was 12 with my family. So I didn't speak any English. I was like a little Dutch girl being in Texas. I learned about, we stick our fingers in the dike. I'm like, really? I don't know. This is knowledge, but okay, fine. Um, and it's interesting. I think moving at that age really had me widen my horizon, right? Where I come from a tiny little country and then you get to Texas where everything is big. Um, and then after that, we moved back to Holland, but we're supposed to move to Italy. And then I moved to Spain and Argentina and Paris and Switzerland and then London. And now I've been in England for 23 years, which is probably the longest I've ever been anywhere. You learn to adapt. You really learn to adapt. And also at one point, it just becomes, it's like, oh, what do I feel? I feel like a citizen of the world, right? And people often ask me, like, where do you want to be buried? And I'm like, I don't know, because my kids now are everywhere as well. This is why I'm here in Lebanon. My son's moving to Nigeria. And then my other son is in Dubai. And then, one of my daughters is in Spain and one in London. So I'm like, I don't really know where I want to be, but it's really shown me an interest in how other cultures are. And one of the ways of looking at that is food. I'm a massive foodie. But you can look at people, how they eat, how they interact, how they share their culture, how they share their food with others, right? So that's always been one of my interests. And just observing. I love traveling and observing and sitting next to the homeless person and saying, hey, what's going on with you? Because all we want is connection. And so often, it doesn't matter what language you speak, you can still connect energetically, and hands and feet, work really well when you sign language and stuff. Yes, I don't feel 100% Dutch because I haven't lived there in ages. I lived there for the first 12 years of my life only.
How many languages do you speak?
I speak Dutch, I speak English, French, and Spanish. 4.
Wow.
And like 3-4 words of Arabic. So, hands and feet Arabic, and we're like a few words here and there. I think that's for people in the States. That's maybe weird, but when you live in a small country like Holland, we have all our TV is dubbed, so it's all undertitled. So you learn how to read and listen to a different language really early on in life.
That is true. I learned Spanish from Telemundo.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's weird, right? Because that's the kind of thing that you're not consciously aware of. But it's like we're like sponges, right? Until the age of 6, we pick up so much stuff, and it's so easy to pick up languages as well until that age.
Did your kids travel very young as well?
My kids, 2 of them were born in Geneva when we lived in Geneva, Switzerland, and 2 were born in London. And then we actually stayed in one spot for quite a while. They travel, yeah. They've always we used to spend 3-4 months a year in Lebanon, so they have a good connection to this place here.
Nice.
They're well traveled. What can I say? It's fun.
Yeah. And I mean, the wealth of knowledge that you've shared with them in a cultural perspective, spiritual perspective, and a literal knowledge perspective, like, how can you not have an amazing family that supports your lifestyle as well?
We try and support each other. Yeah, and it's interesting. It's interesting how mixed marriages work like that, right? And he's Muslim, and the kids were brought up with both Christianity but they're all Muslim. This year they all fasted during Ramadan, and yet they're very liberal and they do their own thing. But they're like, no, I want to do this. So perfect, good for you. Yeah, we all accept it, and it's really creating that acceptance for what others want and what they feel is right for them, and not having to force anything down anyone else's throat. It's like, no, this is what I believe in, and let's have a conversation what you believe in. And if you don't, that's also cool.
Absolutely.
Right?
What was that meme that you saw that said religion is like a penis?
Oh,
What's this one? Oh my God. Sounds like a t-shirt.
Let me pull this one up. I gotta find it.
I think I can summarize.
There we go.
Oh.
It says, religion is like a penis. It's nice to, or it's fine to have one. It's fine to be proud of it, but please don't whip it out in public and start waving it around.
It's a good way of describing it, right? Because if we look back at all the wars, they have been, a lot of them have been around religion. And it's like, and I kind of just see where I'm much more spiritual than that I'm following one path from religion only. It's like, it's between me and God, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I always ask, like, how does what you believe in allow you to experience oneness?
Beautiful. It's a beautiful way of asking it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the way that you are, right? I'm starting to even like lose the distinction between religion and spirituality. I'm just here, just being. And we get to choose how we be. We get to choose if we want to subscribe, to a popular belief, whether it's about our, what goes on inside of us and our relationship to ourselves, or if it has to do with food and our relationship to that, or our relationship to our bodies. I think there's an infinite number of religions or belief systems that we can subscribe to. And if we don't subscribe, then what?
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. It's like, here's the ingredients for the cake. How do you bake is on you.
Yeah.
And all these different ingredients, you bake it however you choose to bake it.
That is true. And you just release any of the charge, right? It's not good or bad. It's like, it just is. Yeah. And that's the thing with the more that I feel that we ascend and that we actually become one again, it's like, okay, it's neither good nor bad. It's like, okay, you're Christian, you're great, you're Muslim, you're this, you're that. It's like, okay, cool, whatever, right? But it's kind of like, I feel like I just shrug my shoulders a lot these days, and I just don't get triggered much anymore. Although, the glimmers are in the triggers, right? Because it's like, oh, let's see that one. What happened again? Like, okay, that's a cool one. I haven't seen you for a while.
That's it. That's it right there. Of when those triggers happen, how do you choose to be with it, especially on a spiritual path? And I've seen it happen before. People they're on a spiritual path, but then they get judgmental of the trigger, feeling like they're not supposed to have the trigger, as opposed to it happens, and how you choose to be with it will determine how it affects you.
It's such mind fucks, right? I mean, it's incredible. I remember I had this spiritual teacher, Jack Van Canfield, and he just said, listen, your mind is lying to you. Don't listen to it. And I remember sitting through one of his meditation classes and just laughing my ass off. Just like, you're lying. Stop it. Cut it off.
Yeah, don't believe everything you think.
It's so funny, right?
Yeah. All right. So this person is Christian. This person is Jewish. This person is Muslim. My name is Kai. Your name is Del. Your name is Juliette.
Don't forget the people who worship spaghetti gods. They're included as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But isn't it funny, right? Why can't we just be a bit more tolerant of everyone? And we see, yes, I understand when it's a new movement that you have to be very vocal about it. And I know like the whole gender equality and then the whole gender things now and how many different ways people identify with what gender and what sex and everything. And I'm like, you know what? End of the day, we're all just souls having a human experience. And let's just connect in that space. Yeah. I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to disagree. But, we all want to be understood and seen and heard. And it's like, great. I can understand you, and I don't have to agree with it, but it's cool.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, and none of it is wrong, just like you're saying, you know.
And no one needs to be fixed. I mean, stop trying to fix other people. This is one of the
No.
things I'm like, yo, stop. I'm not a fixer, because that's one thing that you will get as a coach or as a mentor. You'll get people like, oh, but how do you do this? It's like, you're not broken. I will walk this path with you, and I might be 2 steps ahead of you, and I'll be like, come on, come this way. This is how I've done it. But you find your way. You can try my way. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, doesn't mean that it's wrong. It might just not be the right path for you, or the right way for you to do it. And you might need a slightly different opening.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So Juliette, where can people find you? Those people who just need your presence in their lives, where do they go?
I think best thing is probably to go to my website, which is called feelfullyu.com. And there's a whole bunch of free meditation, trigger meditations, hypnosises, journals on there. My Instagram is Juliette with double T-E, so French spelling, Karaman, Karaman. And Facebook, same thing, Juliette Karaman. I even think I have a LinkedIn, which I don't use very often, but those are definitely the easiest way to find me. And also I have I do this course called Scrumptious Dates, and the first week is completely free. So people get to just try it, see if they like it, and then they continue the course or not. But at least they'll have one way how they can connect with their partner. And the first week, we take sex off the table, and it's all about communication and actually really seeing each other. Because so often what happens, we kind of like have these low level things that come up, right? It's like, oh, you didn't take the rubbish out, or you didn't do this. And we don't say it, but it builds up. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't be bothered anymore. So this first week will help take care of that.
Beautiful. Thank you for the work that you do with individuals, couples, emerging adults. Like, this is amazing. You are a wealth of resources.
Thank you for having me. This is great. It was fun talking to you.
Yeah.
Likewise. Okay, and
Stay magical.
thank you to everyone who's watching, listening. We appreciate you. And yes, do stay magical.
You've been listening to our Daily Magic Podcast with Kai and Del. Please like, subscribe, and tune in next week for another magical episode. Visit www.ourdailymagic.com for more.